before I go into something that lines up, so you kind of teed it up for me without knowing it, is this is a big thing that just never goes away. It's the parents' panic of not being, not their, of their kid not getting where they want them to be as fast as they want them to be. For example, shooting. So you'll get a dad come in here and like it seems like panic mode that the kid doesn't have a good shot. We need to get his shot going. He's 10, he's 12. It's like it will come. But it's like panic mode. It's like they want to see results faster. Like, how can I change this in an instant? He needs more technique, this, that, the other thing. He's just, he needs a lot more shots. He needs a lot more shots, and he needs a lot of, he needs puberty. He needs to grow up. He needs to get strong. Like, there's a lot that plays into it. But he has to practice a lot. It's his stick handling or his move down here. Like, they panic about it. And it's like, it's a function of its age. Like, and yeah, that's what it is, a function of age. So parents, you see them panic. It's like, I got to get there. I got to get there. So what I wanted to say about that is, I guess what I want to say about that is, like, you can't panic because things take time. And this is where I'm going to go now. Okay. Things take time. What I see, and I really want to see this. We had a meeting about this the other night, is I really would like to see people give themselves at least till 18 to grind it out, because I see way too many hockey players kind of quit on themselves, or because it's only junior this or under 18, they feel like they're failing, and they're not failing at all. They're just on a maybe a slower development path. And it's not even a slower path, it's just a different path. So the glory and the maybe you're not going to get in a newspaper article by playing for the U18 team, probably, right? Whereas if you play for the Windsor Spitfires or you get a scholarship to Michigan State, people are gonna talk about you, and that's nice. You still have to do the work, but it's these kids that get to 18 years old and they feel like, well, or the parents even like, well, it's over. It's guys, it's not over. It's just so not over. It's so, you got so much time to develop and play and to be a good hockey player. And I just really want to emphasize it. And I want to emphasize it because we see it with some of our kids that are sticking to it. And it's like, oh, okay, it actually is true that if I do the work, and the key is to do the work. The key is to do the work, to have the passion to do the work. And if you actually stick to it, you're probably going to see some good results. So it's so funny that people think that 17, 16 not getting drafted in the OHL in Canada, or in the States, if you're maybe not getting a scholarship at 18, you start to panic, well, it's not working out. It's like, you're so young, man. Like, 18 is just the start. Whereas a lot of kids, and especially in the Canadian side, think that 18 it's over. 16 is over. And I really want people to look and understand that that's not the case at all. And what I was going to say about that, well, before I was going to say that, is you mentioned Connor Bedard earlier about bringing his stick on vacation. So I'm going to go into Arber Xhekaj and him for a second, because I think it's really critical. So Connor Bedard recently came out with our Americans or maybe Europeans didn't see this article or this video, but in the World Juniors, it came out with a little clip on him, and like you said, they mentioned he wanted to take his stick on vacation to practice. Like, no one's ever seen that before. So I love it. And the other thing was they were talking about how he broke his wrist, and so he started shooting with one hand, just practicing his shot. And all the kids are talking about that right now, right? He's practicing. So I know what's going to happen. What's going to happen is a bunch of kids for a couple days or a couple weeks or a couple reps are going to practice one-handed, because Connor Bedard did it and it worked for him, right? And I think it's great. But what I think is, people miss the actual point of this. It's not that he shot the puck one-handed that made him a better shooter. Okay? It was everything we talked about. It was his desire that he could just not leave hockey alone. Right? I don't know his parents. I don't know at all. I heard his dad's a loggerman. Right? So he probably works long hours, probably not there to tell him what to do and how to do it. But this kid obviously shot a ton of pucks. He was dialed in no matter what. I don't think mom and dad had to ever say, go do this, I'm going to take you here. He was going to do it no matter what. So it got to the point where this kid breaks his wrist or hand or whatever it was, and it bothered him. Not bothered. It was just inside him, right? His I forget the word I wanted to use, but in him was I love hockey so much that even if this is broken, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I'm still playing.
I'm still doing
I'm still doing it.
But I don't think it was. I don't think it was weird. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it was like I have to do something to keep this. In his mind, this is okay. I can do this then. No, so no matter. My point is, no matter what was in his way, he was going to continue to be the best or try to be the best because he loved it so much. And my point is, no one told him. No one was telling him to do that. So if your son is not that, and I'm not saying Connor Bedard, but if your son doesn't have that deep desire at all costs to spend his time in finding ways to be better at hockey or whatever they choose to do, then you're pushing them now. You're forcing or you're wishing that something good would happen. You're wishing that he had the desire. You don't teach that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You just don't teach that.
And the other thing is that sometimes it comes later. That's the other thing, right? It's like parents are later.
For sure.
They're in such a rush to make their kid like just have this deep desire. And I was saying to you earlier today, like
for sure.
There's like, I remember the expectation of coaches always saying you need to work hard, you need to work hard. And I was saying to you earlier today, like I didn't even know what that meant. Like when I was like 12, I got the concept, like you need to try really hard, but I didn't know what that felt like. I didn't know what the action steps were to actually be trying hard. I didn't know what any of that felt like. I didn't know. And it wasn't until I was like 14, 15, 16, really around 15 or 16 was when I really started to cling to wanting to get better. I didn't have it when I was 10. I played a lot, like I practiced a lot and whatever, but I wanted to do other things. I wanted to play other sports. I wanted to play video games. I wanted to do this other kid stuff, right? And it came later for me, right? And that's the other thing is like there's such an urgency for parents to be like, well, if you don't practice enough, you obviously don't care. And it's like, dude, they're 9 or they're 12 or whatever. Like, let them like it. Like, just let them like it. If they want it, they'll get to it. You know what I mean? But there's just like a rush for it on the parent side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the investment. It's all that. So the last thing I want to talk to, and probably spend a little bit of time on this, is I ran into another article about Arber Xhekaj. He's one of my favorites, And as we said before, you got to see him live a couple of times last year in junior when we went to a couple of Charlie's games. And it was like you can't take his eye. You couldn't take your eyes off him, right? At that point, he was an overager, right? But a big guy, and he just played a different game. And I was impressed with him, and I was really intrigued watching him last year because my first question was, how is this guy not drafted? And then, no, he signed with Montreal, but I go, how was he not drafted? It escaped me because he was so good at that point. And to come to find out that he wasn't that good in like he wasn't drafted in the OHL. And he wasn't like anything to shake your stick at. In fact, I talked to several scouts and they said, yeah, he was no good at 16, 17 years old. And this is what kind of my point tying into that. It's like 16, 17 years old, he was an afterthought. I was like, no, he's very lucky to be in the OHL at this point. Like he's not good, right? So I saw this article yesterday and it just stuck out to me. So it's in the Montreal Gazette. It's called, if anyone want to look it up, I'm going to give it away to you here. It's NHL longshot Arber Xhekaj flips the script for the Canadiens in the Montreal Gazette. All right. So it just starts off. He's 21 years old. And he's first in rookie scoring as a D. Okay. Second in NHL penalty minutes behind Delorier, someone that he fought. So right from the hop, that's pretty good stats. So, as it says, it's not bad for a 21-year-old who was not selected at junior in the OHL junior draft or the NHL draft before signing with the Canadiens. So you think about that, like there's layers to this, man. So he wasn't selected. Like I know I've said it a million times, but he was not selected in the Ontario junior in the Ontario Hockey League. He got an invite to Kitchener, and it was like, there's something about him, we'll keep him, right? So he was at the end of the day, for a 17-year-old kid going into that league, he's like an afterthought. Like if we look at that, go back a few minutes and say, if at 16, 17 you don't make it, it's over. Well, this guy shouldn't be there. So when you go in as a walk-on and you're playing like as the 8th D on an OHL team and you're 17 or 18 years old, it's like it's not fun, man. There's something that has to drive you to do that every day. Maybe you like wearing the jacket, or maybe your dream is really big. There's one of the two, right? Or you love hockey so much that you feel like you can do it. But that's a huge thing. And to not get drafted in the NHL, which that's fine, but there's a belief that you have to have in yourself, right? There's a definite belief that you have to have in yourself. What I love about this is like I don't think people can really understand the mindset. You know, like when we talk to players, like, okay, let's take the OHL draft or the colleges, right? You're going through that as a kid and you want it to happen, but do you want it to happen? Like, do you really want it to happen? So when the disappointments come, what do people actually think? No one likes the hardships, right? And to go and say, no, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do this thing. Like that's a hard path that this guy took, right? But he believed himself and kept doing it. But think about this. Can you imagine, like, because we all, a lot of times we pretend that we're good, right? Oh yeah, we're good. Imagine you're sitting there and you think you're pretty good, but you're not sure because no one's picked you, right? I'm this big guy. No one's picked me. You got guys saying, "No, man, you're pretty good." Like, who drafted? Like, where'd you get drafted? I've never been drafted, and it's like that's a pain in the ass to explain to people that you're not supposed to be good, right? And that's just that not getting picked, always getting overlooked is like there's a mental side, a mental toughness that you can't explain, right? There's a love, obviously, but there's something there that you can't explain. And like I don't want to overstate, like he went 100% in, and he said like I started, not started, but I committed to the gym. I committed to getting stronger. I ate 6 meals a day, healthy, good food. Like that's a commitment. People take those words lightly, but it's a commitment. And when you see when things come together, what can happen with a belief in yourself.